argument is that gaze is equally as important, if not more fundamental, than what's been covered so far. And here's a song.
Tall and thin and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes, each one she passes goes. When she walks, she's like a samba that swings so cool and sways so gently that when she passes, each one she passes goes. Oh, but he watches so sadly. How can he tell her he loves her? Yes, he would give his heart gladly. But each day when she walks to the sea, she looks straight ahead, not at him. Tall and tan and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes, he smiles, but she doesn't see.
Okay, so from this very popular and beautiful song, we can see that communication through gaze is very important. Firstly, he watches her so sadly, okay? He's communicating something through the way he's looking at her. How can he tell her he loves her? He's considering, how he could communicate, how he feels. So there's a lot of gaze, there's a lot you can see from his gaze probably in that instance. And then on her part, you can see that she is giving him no attention. It's completely averted gaze. There's no eye contact whatsoever. She just looks straight ahead, not at him, and she clearly doesn't really care about him. And while she passes, he's smiling, but she doesn't see. Her averted gaze shows that she's not actually registering any of his communication signals. So there we can see that gaze shows a lot about how someone feels about someone else. And as she passes, everyone's looking at her and responding to her. And so there's a lot of audience kind of gaze as well. You can get a lot about how an audience feels about a topic, a stimulus, an object, target object, okay, from their gaze as well. So clearly, gaze is an important social phenomenon. And generally, social phenomena related to communication are called paralanguages. That's the old term for it. And those relate to gestures and the like. And more recently, there's a new term for social signals, which is part of something called a network science. So social signals are viewed by Pentland and his colleagues and people in his field to be part of a cultural network of communication codes. So again, there's a continuation of the theme that gestures and social communication through non-verbal cues is important. Baron Cohen, a major researcher in autism, has also given attention to gaze. Eye detection device is deemed to be a natural, inborn, fundamental part of human communication. He also draws links from evolution, where animals, who are deemed to be more very early predecessors of humans, have shown using gaze their way of dealing with predators. So there's something called tonic immobility, where the prey responds to predators by communicating through averted gaze. So through averted gaze, they communicate that they don't detect the predator. They communicate that they are possibly dead. They're trying to feign death, which is why it's called tonic immobility. So that's already found in kind of the natural animal world. What about the human world? Well, there's something called a shared attention mechanism from the age of 6 months in infants. So clearly it's almost inborn, it's almost innate, it's very, very early, and young infants are already using eye gaze as a way of learning about the world and learning about the objects that they are interested in. Okay, so just to reiterate, gaze seems to have an instinctive importance. there is a reflex bias in young infants already towards human gaze as an attentional cue compared to artificial cues such as arrows or shapes. Okay, so the human gaze has an instinctive importance even from maybe as early as 6 months. Neural processes are delegated, are given specifically for gaze processing, and it seems that the face, the human face, is only interesting to children because of the gaze information. So gaze is very important. What about teaching signals? Well, gaze is relevant to teaching because of something called communicative intent. And Gibra and Gershby, his colleague, have talked about communicative intent, and they talk about the idea of natural pedagogy. But basically, communicative intent could be seen through your social signals, through your nonverbal cues, and communicative intent is there to show that you have the intention to inform, informative intent. So a teacher will need to use communicative intent in order to show that I need to give you some information. Please pay attention to me now. So communicative intent is important, and that is shown through things called ostensive signals, social signals, paralanguage, gaze. And other than gaze, we have auditory cues, such as motherese, if you're still an infant, and other amodal, kind of non-specific channels, which is where if someone's kind of responding to you on the basis of something you've done, then you think that they're trying to communicate with you as well. So there's a contingency of contingent responsivity. So your response is dependent on something else, or if someone else's response is contingent on something else you've done, that's something else that shows that someone's trying to communicate. And of course, just to reiterate again, eye contact is clearly an important ostensive signal. And my argument and my focus is on thinking and knowing, communicated through gaze, or emphasis or confidence, and non-emphasis or doubt. Okay, so that's my focus. So attention has been given to this. In Android development, that's development of robots that are human-like. It's found that it's easy to recognize whether an android is an android rather than a human being, and because they have different eye gaze patterns. And so when a human communicates with a human participant, they tend to use direct gaze and averted gaze, and they tend to use direct gaze when they are emphasizing or when they are confident, and they tend to use averted gaze when they are doubting or thinking. Whereas an android so far hasn't tended to follow these patterns, and so they seem less human-like. So in order to be more human, it could be argued that direct and averted gaze need to be used appropriately. And I would argue that you need to use that appropriately in the classroom as well. Otherwise, there might be kind of a lack of a humanity or humanness that could be added into the classroom. So my research question is, do teachers utilize direct gaze more when they are knowing or emphasizing, and do they use averted gaze more when they are thinking or doubting? So what did I actually do so far? In my master's studies, this is my design. This is a study I conducted. Participants had to do two things mainly. They had to wear these glasses for 10 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes during their lectures. And then I would analyze what they had come out with, and I would go back to them with the video of their eye gaze data and interview them using a technique called cued retrospective interview, which is where the cue is a specific video segment that's cued, and then retrospective interviews because it's kind of looking back on what already happened. So I'm asking them basically, could you just tell me what you remember thinking or trying to do in this video? And that's repeated over 12 videos. The techniques were TOBI, eye trackers, observational coding. I coded the direct and averted gaze, and I coded the emphasis and the pause verbally. And then, of course, what I just talked about, the cued retrospective interview. The sample consists only of 5 people, and there were 3 females and 2 males. It was an opportunity sample at this uni. Actually, 5 instructors, 5 participants is a particularly large sample for eye tracking data. And the fact that I coded 10 minutes is also quite an enormous amount of time that I would have coded. And so far in published eye tracking papers, you would normally only have one participant, and they normally only code 3 minutes. And those are considered kind of eye tracking gurus. So I would say I've kind of made a real effort there. Even though it looks like a very small sample, what comes out is about 1,000 kind of entry points of data per participant. So it's an enormous amount of data to deal with. So what about inferring cognition from talk? Just to justify that a little bit. Verbal features have kind of for a while been treated as cognition, as a way of seeing what someone is thinking, and for a while. And that derives from Austin's speech act theory, which is where your speech is actually an act. You can see what someone's trying to do, act, from what they say in speech. And that was followed up by Venestrom in 2001, and then 2013, Mitchell and Ross conducted a literature review and kind of drawing everything together and showing that there is a profile, a linguistic verbal profile, for confident speech and also for doubtful speech. So here's, let me try and use the the first time. So here we have the confidence profile, where you have fewer causes usually, and overall a higher speech, a higher pitch on average, and there's more pitch variation, kind of more up and down. They tend to be louder with more energy, and people tend to speak a little bit quicker when they're confident. And then you can expect the opposite for doubtful speech. Okay, so that was in 2013. So back to what I actually did. This is what you come out with. That was the verbal data. This is the visual data. And I'm going to show you what you see. And this is software, Tobii Studio software. So when I export the glasses data onto my computer, this is the kind of thing you see.
Anybody is reliant on their visual system when they're watching TV. So what do we know about the infant visual system? Well, we know it's attracted by movement far, far, far more than it is by static objects. Which sounds like a good argument for TV, because there's been a lot of pressure in recent years to read with babies, to share books with babies from the moment of their birth. And I think there are lots of very good reasons for doing that. But in terms of their visual system, they're going to be far more attracted by something that moves across the screen.
Okay, I think that will do. And so these red dots here, these red dots are where the participant was looking, and these lines are just trails of where they're going next. So they're not necessarily what I would code. I only code the dots. And the thing that you saw down here, that's called the assistant device, recording assistant device, which is where you press pause and play and record, and it's also where the memory card goes. And yeah, this screen here, what you see recorded is from a video camera on the side of the glasses. Okay, and then it's UV rays recording her actual pupil eye movements. So that's how the technology works. Okay, so two main gazes that I was looking at, people gaze and non-people gaze. This is what people gaze looks like, where the red dots are focused around the people, and then this is the non-people gaze up here, where the dots are just away outside of where the people are, whenever she's not presumably making eye contact with people. Okay, so that's what I coded. What I actually found, I've used two types of data. One was frequency data and one was duration data. Frequency data is just the number of times they decided to look somewhere, and duration data is the total time they spend looking somewhere. So frequency data is more like a decision, so the number of times they decided, whereas duration is just total time spent. And slightly different measures, I would say. The frequency data showed that the talk types within each gaze type were very significantly different from each other, and the duration data was useful for showing that the pause data, for example, the talk pause data from each gaze type are very significantly different from each other, which overall together shows that we could accept that direct gaze is related to knowing and averted gaze is related to thinking. So overall, both gaze types kind of support the hypothesis that I had. In terms of the interview data, I tried to have one category where I looked at whether talk emphasis on the levels of talk, gaze, and cognition were supported with the idea of congruence. So I used the idea of, is everything that is supposed to be congruent with talk emphasis congruent with it? Is it more likely to be mentioned during the talk emphasis clips? And then also for talk pause, is everything that's supposed to relate to talk pause more likely to be mentioned during talk pause? So for talk emphasis, for example, I would expect more talk emphasis to be mentioned during the interviews. I expected more people gaze to be mentioned. I also expected more confidence to be mentioned. There was a non-significant congruence with each talk type, but it was non-significant. So I ignored that in the rest of my analyses. However, for each, the talk type and the gaze type, they were very significantly related to each of the talk types that I looked at. So talk emphasis, during the talk emphasis segments, I was more likely to hear the participant talk about talk emphasis, and likewise for talk pause. Again, for talk emphasis, I was more likely to hear the participant talk about people gaze, and then more likely to hear the participant talk about non-people gaze during talk pause. So overall, the interview data supported my hypothesis. So where am I going for the next 3 years? Well, my hypothesis was supported so far, and so what I'm thinking is I'm going to do an East-West comparison. I'm trying to get some funding together to compare Hong Kong with England to see if the West, the way the West communicates in classrooms is also the way the East communicates in classrooms. I'm going to actually try and make that into a longitudinal study so that we have 3 time points and we can kind of see whether that develops over time, changes somehow. So we need to learn some longitudinal analysis there. I'm also going to compare experts and novices, so there's an intergroup comparison. I'm going to see if, especially in secondary school settings, whether teachers who have taught for 5 years or longer will use direct and averted gaze more, and will in turn have stronger and warmer relationships with students, and maybe better learning outcomes from their students compared with someone who is a beginning teacher, for example, a PGCE or NQT. I might compare educational settings after my PhD. This is kind of too much to do in one kind of thesis, but maybe compare lecture settings with seminar settings with kind of classroom settings. But also I could compare activities. So I could compare when a teacher is doing instructional didactic teaching, and then compare that with what the teacher does when the kids are just doing group work, and compare that to when there's maybe a whole class discussion. So there will be different gaze patterns depending on the activity in the actual learning session. And of course, if you have any other ideas, that'd be great. Cool. So that's, oh yes. So this is my visual representation of what I'm doing, comparing experts across East and West. And I'm looking at these are the outcomes at teacher engagement, student engagement, and hang on a minute. Teacher-student relationship. That's the top picture, that's it. Student engagement and also teacher engagement. So that's what I'm doing in my PhD. Okay. That's a boring summary of the pictures. So we can go back to the pictures. Yes.
Any questions or ideas?
Thanks for a very interesting presentation, and I'd like to know where I can get parachutes. My question's actually to do with the glasses. So they're quite striking, obviously. So how much did the participants know about what you were actually investigating? and the students as well, you know, if they see this teacher with a, you know, this piece of equipment on his head, and how much of an effect would that had on the data? I mean, your hypothesis was supported, so it's pretty solid.
So maybe they were trying to keep it because they're such a nice teacher. Okay, well, firstly, generally, in terms of eye trackers, there has been papers published, and I went to an eye tracking conference over the summer, and it was a big issue, you know, this observational effect on people. They're more socially desirable, they're more cooperative. There's an example of a guy in Canada, a guy called Kingston. He's big on social cognition and social gaze. He actually did quite a few of these studies, and he put a sexy calendar at the side of a research room. So the actual research task he asked participants to do was completely irrelevant, but basically his main concern for this particular study was what are they going to do after they do the research task when they're waiting for 10 minutes. It's more likely, he found, that participants would look at the sexy picture if they weren't told that they were being video recorded. So there is that potential effect. However, he then conducted the same study and kind of compared time durations. And basically, if you tell someone that eye trackers, if they're wearing an eye tracker or if they're being video recorded, there is a 5-minute saturation point. So kind of after 5 minutes, usually the observational effect is gone. But in terms of what I specifically did, I was very honest. I said it was a pilot study, which it was. I said it was a look into teaching styles, which it kind of was. And then at the end of the interview process, I kind of gave everything away. And I told the teachers exactly what I was doing. But in terms of students, yeah, they just thought it was teaching styles.
Thank you. I think this means that we have time for 1 or 2 questions. Let's see. Winter.
I'm actually teaching Hong Kong for 1 year as secondary school teacher, and I found that the first 5 seconds I looked at the students' hairstyle. If they have very attractive hairstyle, I look at it for 5 seconds. But afterwards, maybe I got some very bright students or very lazy students, I look at them all the time. But sometimes I do that, it's like I have some random, it's not gazing, it's just looking at them. So I just wonder if this really counts as kind of gazing, because sometimes it's really random kind of chance that I look at that person. Because of something like attractive, more than that sound, it's random kind of gazing or just it's really gazing person.
Okay, so 2 things. I think Winfred's trying to say that sometimes he's not deliberately looking at someone to communicate something and to give information, so surely it's not valid. Well, there is the argument that gaze is not only a conscious tool, communication tool, it is also an unconscious communication tool. And so people do use it naturally. It's part of natural pedagogy. It's just something that's naturally occurring. And I'm just trying to see if it naturally occurs in the classroom. It's going to be correlational, it's not going to be cause and effect, but hopefully if I use kind of 10 minutes of milliseconds of data and kind of use 10 participants, 10 teachers, then there will be a good amount that is generalizable, so that I can start seeing the patterns of teacher behavior and the patterns of the effect on behavior.
Thank you. 1 more question? Yes.
So can you tell us how to relate this to the success of teaching learning process in the classroom?
So like, what is that?
So you're going to observe gaze,
Yeah.
and how can you relate to gaze and the success of teaching and learning process in the classroom, because this is education department.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm doing in my PhD. That's what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to look at what teachers do in their gaze, and I'm going to look at the effect on the top picture, which is teacher-student relationship. And then I'm going to look at student engagement. That's going to be another measure. And I'm also going to look at teacher engagement. I can't tell you yet. It's what I'm doing next. But I expect it will have an effect. Because gaze is so human. It's so naturally innately human. And it's been so well established as to be part of human interaction already. And it must be quite important to use it skillfully in order to teach effectively.
So maybe you're going to see the pattern. This one will contribute to the success of teaching learning process. This one do not, or is it something like that one?
I understand something like that.
So we will wait. If it is okay, we can wait for this. One last question, and I'm sure we can carry on the discussion at the international lunch next Friday at 1 o'clock. This is a reminder. We haven't had Mohammed.
Okay, I think the classroom as a part of communication between teachers and students, apart from social life. For example, if you use a technique to measure something in part of the world, it's not necessary it's good for other part of the world, because some people use the face or body language or use a talk communication more than other kind. How we try to avoid this effect in your research? To avoid this part about in social life, they usually do this part and not affect them in the classroom.
Hence my intercultural comparison, which hopefully sometime there will be funding for. That is my question. I'm going to compare 5 lecturers in Hong Kong, hopefully, with the 5 lecturers in the UK, and see if there is any difference. So that is a very important concern, which is why it's part of my thesis.
Okay, thank you, Nora. I think that we will do more these courses in the classroom setting.